I need a report mixing metrical potential and medical science against competitors. Not just the
Okay, I get it. Everybody relax. What if instead of jumping between spreadsheets, dashboards, PDFs, and screenshots, you could just describe the report you want and get it done in minutes with AI? That's exactly what Metrical Studio does. And in this video, I'll show you what it is, how it works, and how you can use it in 3 real situations social media professionals deal with all the time. Comparing brands, analyzing competitors, and building a content strategy based on your own performance data. Metrical Studio is basically an AI reporting tool inside Metrical that helps you build reports just by describing what you want to analyze. But what makes it useful is that it doesn't stop at making charts or showing numbers. It actually helps you understand what's behind all of that data. So instead of looking at a spike in reach and trying to guess what happened, you can spot patterns faster, understand what's working, and decide what to test next without digging through reports for an hour. And honestly, that changes the whole reporting experience. Okay, imagine your manager or client asks you to compare 2 brands for the last 3 months on LinkedIn and see what's performing best on each account. All you gotta do to make this happen is go into the reporting tab, and in here you'll see your basic 3 reporting options. You have the basic reports, the campaign dashboards, and Metrical Studio, which is where we're gonna go in. Then after we're in, we're gonna go and click into new AI view. And the first thing that Metrical Studio tells you is that it creates reports in 2 ways. First, the calendar view, and then the analytics. Since we're doing the reporting section, we're going to go into the analytics option. And once you're in here, you're gonna notice that you have pretty much 2 ways to build your report. The first one is the guide mode, which is the one that we're gonna try in this case, just so you can get familiar with the platform. And the second one, which is if you go down, you're going to see that you can create your own prompt if you want something more detailed. However, we have 2 extra cases where I'm going to show you this feature more in depth. So remember, we said that for this case, we wanted to compare 2 brands for the same period. In order to do this, we're going to go into your second option, which is compare brands in the same period. We're going to click that we want it for the last 3 months. We're going to choose which brands we want to compare. So in here, you can see all the brands that you have available. We're going to do these 2. And then we're going to choose our social networks that we want in our report. Since we mentioned LinkedIn, that's the only one we're going to do. Then we're going to see which metrics we want to include in our report. In this case, I want to include my account and my content, which is pretty much my basic metrics and then my content metrics. And something really interesting is as we are clicking all of these options, actually, Metrical Studio is also generating a special prompt for you. So if you want to take a look after you click all of these options, you're more than welcome to do so. And if you want to edit something, you can do it as well. Okay, now let's generate our report. Okay, our view was generated successful, and this is where the report gets useful. Once your report is ready, you can either preview it here or go into your notifications and see the report that you just created. So instead of digging through dashboards and trying to see what changed and what didn't, you immediately get a clear view of all of that. And then you can clearly see what was the biggest difference between the 2 brands that we compared. In this case, the difference wasn't the posting frequency. It actually was that our strongest account, which is Metrical S, was getting more engagement, more followers, and more traction overall. In your report, you can actually see an executive summary of everything that it will tell you metrics-wise. That way, you can immediately know what changed and what didn't in your account. Then, if you go down, you can start spotting patterns across the top performing posts. Maybe shorter posts are driving more shares. Maybe a specific topic keeps outperforming everything else. But all of that you will know once you go at the end of your report, where you can see one of the most useful parts of this report, which is our conclusions. For example, Metrical Studio points out that one account has way more reach and shareability, while the other one turns visibility into followers more efficiently. Then, at the end of your conclusions, it also suggests what each brand can learn and do from one another. And of course, this is all up to you, but I think this is awesome when you're trying to get more insights when you look at the numbers. And by the way, if you want to share these with, again, your manager or your clients, but they don't have a Metrical account, don't worry, because right here you can get a public link so you can share with anyone you want, which honestly makes the feedback way faster and reporting way easier because you're not exporting PDFs back and forth every 5 minutes. Okay, but comparing two brands is just one part of it, because sometimes the real question isn't how are we performing? Sometimes it's why is that other account growing faster than us? And this is something social media professionals do constantly. Opening competitor accounts, checking their posts, comparing engagement, and overall trying to know what they're doing differently. So let's go ahead and make that process faster. For this next report, we are going to switch into manual mode. So instead of selecting all of these options manually, you can describe in the prompt that I talked to you about earlier exactly what you want to have in your report. For example, I'm gonna give it a prompt where it analyzes my Instagram account to other competitors over the last 2 months. These two competitors that you see right here are added into the analytics section of Metrical all the way down on the Instagram tab. You're able to add all of your competitors' handle, and then from there, Metrical already has the data to analyze that. So I'm going to ask it to analyze my account to my competitors and focus on some metrics. That way it can then give me a ranking of their best performing content, a comparison, recommendations, and content inspiration. Now, this prompt might look a little bit long, and the regular one that we give also is very long as well, but don't stress. I'm not going to hear every prompt in this video line by line, because if I do that, we would be here for 3 hours, and we don't want to do that. But the point here is to show you basically the kind of analysis you can ask Metrical Studio to do. Okay, so I already have this done, and I'm going to ask it to generate it for me. Okay, it already generated, so let's go ahead and take a look at it again. Okay, so you can see it generated the report right away with all of the best performing posts per brand for the last 2 months. It also has each post linked, that way you can go and see it. But it's labeled per brand, likes, comments, and overall engagement. And then at the end, it breaks down the different approaches each brand has per content. Then it shows you a strategy comparison. For example, it tells you what you focus on versus the other brands. And at the end, it gives you actionable recommendations. For example, in here, it tells us to double down on platform-specific studies because it really works for us, and these we know. But Metrical Studio already does that job for you. And then it tells you what Domino's and Papa John's do really well. That way we can use that as inspiration for our brand. Perfection. Now let's move to the third example, because this one feels less like reporting and more like building your own strategy assistant. Because instead of comparing brands or competitors, this time we're using Metrical Studio to figure out what's actually constantly working on your own account. And honestly, this is super useful because social media advice online tends to get very generic very fast. Post at this hour, use this format, try this trend. But at the end of the day, your audience is your audience. And the best way to understand what's actually working for them is to look at your content patterns first. Okay, for the next report, we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to ask Metricool Studio to analyze Metricool's Instagram account for the last 4 months and to highlight our 10 top performing posts. Then I'm going to tell it to get insights and conclusions about our content formats that perform best, which times are our best times to post based on our audience, if there are any patterns that are very successful that we don't know of that we need to keep repeating, and things along those lines. So let's go ahead and generate that report. Now that we have this report, I started looking at it, and of course we have our common metrics right here, but what I really like about it is that it gives you the why behind these posts are our best performing ones. So for example, it tells us that carousels are the clear winners because it's the format that works the best for us in terms of reach and engagement. And it also tells us that our educational type of content is what brings the most engagement to our accounts. So it's what our audience probably likes the most. And honestly, this analysis is very specific because it not only tells you your best content formats and the why behind it, but again, it also gives you the optimal times for engagement based on the audience that already follows you, their current patterns in top posts, and the type of content that works for you. Then at the end, it also gives you recommendations for your next month based on the data that it already studied. So instead of reviewing everything manually and trying to figure out why it worked, it connects those patterns for you and builds them in the report as recommendations. So I think this is pretty cool. So yeah, that's how you can create social media reports with AI in just minutes by using Metricool Studio. From comparing brands to analyzing competitors to figuring out what content perform best at your brand. The whole idea here is to spend less time building these reports manually and more time actually using and understanding the insights.
If you want to keep exploring, Metricool Studio already has a library of templates built in, so you don't have to start from scratch. Create your Metricool account with the link in the description and start playing.
See you in the next one, Metricooler.